Hello and welcome to another Game Nexus arcade video. Today we're going to be taking a look at this item here, which is actually the EX board by ExAmu or ExAmu or whatever you want to call them. Now this board is similar to the Taito Type X2, is a PC-based board, and this one actually came in the original shipping box, which honestly really surprised me, but I'm going to get all the cardboard out of the way here and let you see what we got here. Now, this board, unfortunately, at the moment is not working, so can't really do much with it, but here it is. It looks like I had previously taken this apart, so here's our bag of screws and extra doodads, and this is the little piece that would normally cover the game cartridge. Couple of bags of packing peanuts here for some reason, and then here is our power supply, which is just used as a normal plug-in power supply. I'm gonna go ahead and throw this box on the ground because it's fairly ginormous, but just to give you a better look at this thing, since these are not all that common, but here it is. It also works on JAMMA, as you can see here, but I'm going to go ahead and open this up, as most of the screws are out, so the boards kind of can freely move. I probably was to the point where I was like, oh, well, I'll figure this out a little bit later, and I just never got to it. But here is, well, looks like here's the cartridge, but actually I'd never noticed that before, but the edge of it is actually broken. So let me go ahead and pull this off so it doesn't get any further broken. But there is, yeah, I never noticed that the cartridge edge was broken here, but there is, if it'll see right properly, Arcana Heart 3 version 3.01. Yeah, I never noticed that was broken like that, but maybe in various handling, this edge just got kind of broken off there. Hopefully it doesn't affect the functionality, but let's go ahead and take a quick look here. This is our top board, which if you saw my video on the Triforce, this is kind of like its JVS board, if you will. But we're going to just take a quick look here to see how this actually comes off. This is some kind of IDE cable here. And then this is a power connector that's probably giving our top board here a little bit of power. Oh, I think it's exact opposite of what I was thinking. I was thinking I had to like pry up on that board and see what we had here. So okay, now this can kind of pull out. Okay, this is for some indicator on the front. And one of the big reasons I'm kind of doing this all on camera is because if I mess something up, I can go back and check my video footage and be like, okay, well, where did you pull that connector out of? I think taking these guys off on the back would probably be the best idea here. I was thinking I'd slide it out the other way, but you can see there's two, like, I don't know if these are VGA connections or if they're serial connections for some I/O or something. But let's get these out, and then we can take our top board off and get down to the motherboard, which 9 out of 10 times with these EX boards, the motherboard being dead is usually the problem. Because what happens is this was a arcade system that typically be in a not so ventilated arcade cabinet, and the main board would then get completely smothered, and your main board would die. So it'd be like in the Triforce, if the GameCube board died, guess what? You don't have any more Mario Kart or F-Zero. You just have a dead board here. Okay, let's see now. Move all these connectors out of our way and see if we can. There we go. Now we got it. That's our Interpark Games Exboard IO version 1.0. You'll see it pulls power off of here, and it looks like it pulls power off of there too. And then this has our sound amp, right left audio out. It had 2 VGA ports here. One of them was blocked with this guy here. So they're probably like that in case you're an operator who doesn't have like multiple monitors. So let's get that out of our way. Now, back down to the suspect at hand here. Let's get this cable out of here. Oh wow, so basically what you're looking at here is your must be some kind of transformer that's taking our DC power and giving the motherboard what it can handle. Nothing goes into the PCI connector here. And what are these connectors in the back? A whole lot of nothing that we can't see, because they're all like, do you see the back of the case here? They're all like connected here. But how do I want to say it? You can't see what they're connected to. And then there's this guy here that just goes directly into the board in the corner here. And then that's our offending board here, which is probably what caused this to die. And what you got to do on this board is apparently the BIOS chip is socketed, and you take that out of the socket and then put it in the replacement board, which I actually have right here. So this is our replacement board here. I actually never opened this from when I got it. They said this was taken out of operation and fully working. Let me just see if I can kind of get this out. And we can take a quick look at this. Oh, it's actually wrapped in plastic. That's actually pretty nice. You kind of don't expect this when you get like secondhand stuff. Yeah, it's actually wrapped in plastic here. So there it is. As you can see, it's a perfect match for what's in there. The 1 RAM stick is not included with this version, but it's included on our original, so we can go ahead and like swap that out and then connect anything this board has to this board and then go from there. But what I'm going to do first here my only guess would be is this guy here is the BIOS. I'm not sure how that chip would come out unless that chip is literally like a ZIF socket and it pulls straight out. But yeah, that's basically what we got here. So I'm just going to put this back in its little bubble wrap sleeve for now. And one thing I'm just going to do really quick before I get into any hardcore EXboard disassembly. And if you didn't notice, the that top I/O board was actually the board that our game cartridge interfaced with. So basically, this cable is the one that's taking care of that IDE transfer of everything. Because if you can see here, that's where our game cartridge went. It's basically an IDE socket. And then this one would act like your... Yeah, you can actually see the pins actually go directly to that. And then that goes to the main board, and that lets it read all the data. So it's more or less a pass-through for like a solid-state storage device. But only one thing I'm going to do here in the first part here before we're done is I'm going to go ahead and take this power supply and just plug it in really quick. And we're just going to test it really quick with my multimeter and see if it's actually pulling the proper amount of voltage. Because if it is, then guess what? Our main board just as I had initially thought, is probably at fault. Now, if only the power cord gets unstuck from my tripod here. There we go. The joys of making these off-the-cuff videos. Let's go ahead and plug this in. And little light comes on the power supply. And I'm going to just grab my multimeter. And we're just going to go ahead and test this power supply and see if it's actually giving us the proper voltage. So there's our multimeter. And I'm just going to do the good old-fashioned one goes on the outside, one goes on the inside. And as you can see, it's giving us a solid 12 volts. Well, I have them reversed. It looks like it's center pin positive, so red should go inside like this. And then look, we get a positive 12 volts, which tells us our power supply brick is good, which that's one of the other big failures, is this power supply could go bad, and therefore you need to get another one. But it would appear not the case. I just want to see if maybe that piece of plastic from the cartridge is in here, and if that would be the case. Oh yeah, it had these crazy white screw things here that were holding in the cartridge shield, if you will, and that let this be held. But I seriously don't remember it being broken like that, but it could have been, but because it's been so long since I've done this. But what I'm basically going to do at this point, well, probably after right now, is take this motherboard out, take a quick look at it, and see if I can figure out how to get that old BIOS chip out. And then what I have to do is put the new board in, boot it up, and reset all the settings. And I'll show you when we do that. And then you swap the BIOS chips, put the game in, and fix up the game. And at that point, you should be able to play some Arcana Heart 3. But so I'm going to see what I can do with taking this apart, and then I'll get back to you on that. Okay, welcome back. Well, fast forward like a couple weeks. I got my proper toolkit here for extracting BIOS chips, as this is what's called, I forget the exact term, but if I'm wrong, I think it was like a PPC package or something. It needed a very specific extractor, or you could break the socket. Like for instance, here's just a random screwdriver they included. Here's the one we needed. This is the PPC extractor. This is a normal IC extractor. You would just grab on either side of the IC chip and pull it out. And this is one of those ones that kind of does this and grabs it. I'll get closer to the coffee table. Grabs it, yeah. So basically, now we got the required tools. I figured I would give this whole thing a shot. But what I'm going to do first here is I have the motherboard out. And if you were wondering, that one chip of RAM is this one here. Oh, good, the camera focused. This one here, which is 1 gigabyte of DDR2. So not too beefy specs, but then again, this is basically like a mid-range all-in-one package. But I just wanted to show you this really quick on the original board. What was going on here? I remember in the original video I said, oh, well, this is some sort of strange thing. But basically what this is doing is it's tapping into the VGA port on the main board, and it's basically multiplying it, and then these guys go into your I/O board to give you that 2 VGA outs for your JVS. And that's basically all we have going on here. So nothing too crazy. But I just wanted to show you that before I took this all apart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all this off of this main board, put it onto the new motherboard, and then I'll see you again when we're trying to boot up the whole thing to reset the settings. And then we'll swap out these BIOS chips, which is that PPC package, as I told you. you need that specific extractor, and hopefully I can get it out without breaking it. But I'm going to go ahead and take this all apart because it looks like this is going to be a pain in the neck to get off. And yeah, then we'll go from there. Once I have the new board in, and I don't know if I'm going to connect all the JVS nonsense, but we'll see. And then I'll reset the settings, which you have to do that with a IDE. What is that old technology called now? PS2 keyboard. There you go. The PS/2, the Personal System 2 keyboard. But we're going to go ahead and do that. See the PS2 ports here for the keyboard. You plug your keyboard in there. You go into BIOS. You reset all settings. You swap over the BIOS chips. Then you got to do a little bit to make the game work. And that should get Arcana Heart 3 booting. But I'm going to go ahead and take that all apart, which is probably going to take me longer than I think. And go ahead. But the other interesting little thing here is this connector here, I believe, is the front panel, which then goes into the JVS, which lets the JVS more or less control this PC motherboard. But I'm going to go ahead and get all that nonsense done, and see you in a bit. Okay, and as you can see now, we're back. I have the new board hooked up with this PC power supply, this HDMI to VGA to connect it to the TV, and of course our classic eMachines bluish green motherboard, which you'll probably see more of this one in another video for something I'll be messing with fairly soon. But basically I had to do it this way because I figured out that when the board is actually in the case, the problem is the ports back here get blocked. So there is absolutely no way to plug the keyboard in that I have to go in to clear the settings. And I'm going to go ahead. I actually printed out the stuff that I have to do because as I'm legitimately making this video with my phone, I can't be looking at the instructions on my phone. But as it says right here, get the replacement PCB, which we have. And if you're wondering, this is a piece of anti-static bubble wrap because I figured that way I won't like shock it from the carpet. And it says here, well, pull the BIOS out with the BIOS extractor. We'll do that after this part. On the new via mainboard, turn it on by shorting pins 6 and 8 on the F panel jumper, which when I mentioned it earlier, I was actually incorrect. This is not the F panel. This is actually audio. So that's actually taking audio and throwing it to the JVS board. F panel is actually over here. And now they say here, set everything default on BIOS. You can correct the date if you like and shut it down. And then you pull the BIOS chip with the one from the dead PCB, and it says plug in PST keyboard. You cannot do this after you boot, so make sure you do it prior to booting. And now after this, it was saying, take care of fixing the motherboard. However, the games will not work properly when you try and play them, so to fix them, you have to do this. Plug in the game card into the I/O PCB, plug power into the system will automatically boot. When Windows comes up, it'll pop up with a window asking you to reboot, and we'll be waiting for Y prompt, hit enter, waiting for you to hit enter. Do not hit enter. Hit Control-Alt-Delete the pop-up task manager. Although then again, that actually begs the question, how can I actually do that with the keyboard if the case legitimately blocks the PS2 ports? But I will have to check to see if that can be done. So the only thing I'm gonna do right now is see if we can get this little motherboard to boot, and then get to the point where I can reset the BIOS settings. And then, so there's the power supply booting up. And surprisingly, I actually didn't have to short the 2 pins to get this board to boot, so, or at least it just kind of flashed its BIOS logo on the screen really quick. It's kind of hard to tell if the motherboard is actually active or not, but let me just take a quick look at it here. No, there's no LEDs on this thing at all. But now that I'm thinking about it, let me see. No, the 2 ports that it has that are exposed on the main case are just how do I want to say it? The composite out and S-video out. So let me see if we can go ahead and short these 2 pins, which is, since this is 2, 4, 6, and 8 are right here. Surprisingly, this board has, wait, here it comes. Let's see, the board's coming up, but it's legitimately just displaying its initial BIOS logo. Okay, I think I actually saw something on the screen there really quick in the corner that told me, like, that's the problem. He says reset the BIOS settings, but he doesn't say how to actually get into the board settings. So I'm going to just give you kind of an idea of what I'm seeing here. So here's our screen. But the board booted on its own. I didn't have to short any pins. And of course, if this gets too long or kind of pointless, there's the screen. It displayed the settings really quickly. What I'm going to try to do is reset it, and then quickly, maybe I can just get into BIOS settings. No, not at all. Not at all. Maybe it's like F10 or F12. I might have to go back to the videotape on this one and see what it says. Could have been escape to enter BIOS settings. Let's try that. Okay, I'm going to mess about with this for a bit, and we'll see if we can get into it really quick. Okay, now we're back to the coffee table here, and long story short, what was happening was I was trying to get into the BIOS of the quote-unquote new board here, and I was using my... if I can get the power supply out of this thing, but I was using my VGA to HDMI, and I am guessing that particular adapter did not like whatever resolution the BIOS screen displayed at, so it would not display on the TV at all. Oh, there we go. So I got in. I'll display the little BIOS screen that I got here. Oh, and the thing I didn't notice before when I was looking at this is this adapter here also taps into the serial port. I'm not sure if it's actually doing anything with that or if it's just for stability purposes, because it'll help this hold up a little. But suffice it to say, I connected this to my computer upstairs, got into the BIOS screen, loaded the defaults, and here we are. So now all I'm going to do is, since this is the new board and this BIOS chip doesn't matter, we're going to go ahead and see if we can pluck this out with the proper extractor here. Oh, I see. That really opens up wide. Kind of surprised here. But we're going to see if we can pluck this out. And then I'll do it again on that other board. So it goes like here, and then not like that. Okay, I'm gonna try that again, but more or less the basic gist here is we just got to get one side, the other side, and then press them together, and that should pull the package out. And then we basically just need to yeah, it felt like it was doing something then, but I don't want to damage the socket because I got to put another chip in here. The original one from the original Arcana Heart 3 board. Okay, now we're deep in there. Let's see if we can. Doesn't appear to be budging all that well. That's really in there. Wow. This is supposed to just pinch the chip out and let it. Oh, there it is. Wasn't the most easy to extract chip, but there it is. See if we can. Little BIOS chip here. Well, it doesn't want to focus on that, but take my word, it's a little BIOS chip. But now, hopefully, see that actually didn't damage the chip at all, which is good, because apparently if you take these out wrong, you can actually crack them. So what I'm going to do now, set aside the new one, take the little BIOS chip, just throw it over here, and get the original one and hope I can pull that BIOS chip out and not absolutely destroy it. This is, okay, so just to know, when we have it, it's right side up if the board's facing like this. So see, the PMC letters are right side up now when the board's facing with VGA ports down. So if you ever have one of these of your own, that's how you'll kind of know. So let's try to make this a little less awkward here. Perhaps. Not the most graceful tool that I've ever used in my life, but okay, now it's like kind of all the way in there. Kind of just pulling, there it goes, pulled the little chip out. Here it is, the chip we need to put into our replacement board. Get the original out of our way. Actually, I just wanted to see if there's any like obvious signs of burn or anything on this, but it could just be that the fan in the unit died and or just the unit overheated. But all we really should have to do now is put this in here and just press it in. There you go. BIOS is now installed. And what I'm going to do at this point is take this board, put it into the unit, and more or less see if anything happens when the whole thing is plugged in. Because the simple fact is if this is in there, I plug in the power supply, nothing happens. There's no point in even trying to try all that nonsense to get the game working, because you have to basically do about 16 other little things to get the game working after you basically get to this stage. So I'm going to stop the video now, and then I will come back once I have the whole thing plugged in, and we'll see if the whole thing even boots. But that's all for now, so let's go ahead and get to that point. Okay, well, it has now been a good while since I have even touched this board. If you remember correctly, in the beginning of the part of this video, which of course you just saw like literally 2 seconds ago, I had swapped the motherboard of the ExAmu Exboard for a replacement one, and that legitimately did nothing. But it turns out, it looks like the problem was the power supply all along. As you can see, I have the original board here on my desk and it's powering up. So all I'm going to have to do is reset everything to defaults here, swap the chip back over, which I'll just do off camera really quick, and how do I want to say it, then connect everything to the board, like all the extra boards that were on the daughter board, and see if Arcana Heart will indeed boot. But let me go ahead and do that, and I will be back when the chip is swapped over and I have kind of attempted to reconnect everything, so it'll just be a minute. Okay, well, we are at the point where I have to hook everything up and test the game, but of course today I ran out of time, so I'm going to have to do this tomorrow or later. But I got the original BIOS chip in there. Luckily I watched my original video as I was using the wrong tool to get it out and nothing was happening. I was using that one with the little spider legs and trying to get them in all four corners. I used the black one with the little metal insert and that worked. But I will be putting everything back together and trying this later since I legitimately don't have any more time. But you'll see me back with the daughter board and everything connected to the main board once we get back, and hopefully we'll have some Arcana Heart booting and we'll use our OpenJVS cabinet, which didn't exist almost 2 years ago when I started this project, in order to actually control the game. But yeah, we're doing pretty good, and we'll go from here later. Okay, well, it is later in the evening now. I have connected the daughter board along with all its various things to the motherboard here, and I basically just have it jury-rigged to the PC power supply. And as you can see, the game actually works now. So, barring a bad power supply in the case here, the board appears to be fine, and it just needed a new CMOS battery. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and test the power supply and see if it powers up. And if it is good, then I will put the board and everything back into the casing here and see if that works, because for all we know, it might have just been the CMOS battery had died. The setting that turned the board on when the power was connected was lost, and sure enough, that might have been all we needed. But I'm going to go ahead and mess with the power supply a bit, see if it's okay, and if it is, then I'll put everything back together and we'll have a working Arcana Heart 3 ExAmu Exboard. As you can see, everything appears to be working just fine. Okay, well, I got everything back into the Exboard case. I plugged in the included power brick, and sure enough, as you can see, everything is working. I got the sound working because I got the plugs plugged into the JVS power thing here, and I put the plug back into the secondary video. And the only thing that I have to do next time is wire up the JAMMA harness so I can actually, you know, play the game. But sure enough, ExAmu Exboard is now fully functional, and it's running the included Arcana Heart 3 software. And yeah, everything appears to be working. I might do a little bit of an in-depth thing in this board at the end just to kind of show it off a little bit. But sure enough, in the past couple days, which honestly was 2 years ago when I actually tried to get this working, yeah, I got it working, and I found out that it turns out it was just the CMOS battery the whole time. And I think I got this board for like 60 bucks, like way back when. And as you can hear, yeah, everything's working, no problems. Well, as I said, in the final part of this, I will go a bit more in depth, and then not too long after this, we'll do an arcade video, but that's going to be all for at this moment. Got our ExAmu Exboard fully working. Okay, well at this point I have the board completely hooked up. As you can see, we have JAMMA hooked up. Now, before I get too far into this, I just want to go over a couple of quick things here. Of course, either of the VGAs out the side will work. Either of the ports out the front will work for the audio. I just got the ones on the right, so it doesn't really matter. You'll notice on the JAMMA harness, power is not connected because the unit's being powered by the AC adapter, so no need for that. The only really thing to note here is JAMMA does buttons 1 through 4. On your harness, button 4 might not be wired up, or you might have to like jam a wire into there if it's one of those cheap JAMMA harnesses. And then the way button 5 works is on that auxiliary harness where you see the connection there. The first pin is button 5 for player 2, and I want to say the third pin is button 1 for player 2. And then on the other side there where the game cartridge is, there is there's a Mullix connector for power. That actually is not an input but an output. It actually outputs 12 and 5 volts. And what I did was I used an alligator clip off of the harness in order to pull the 5 volts that the controller needs to actually work. Because if you have one of these, I learned really quickly how this actually works. If it's grounded, the joystick will work just fine. However, no buttons will work unless +5 is going to the proper pin. So if you ever have one of these controllers and you swear you wired it up just right, and only the joystick works, you're not supplying the proper voltage to the proper pin, and that's usually the problem. But the only unfortunate part about the Exboard is that you can't get controls from JVS. You can only get them off of JAMMA, so you have to use your left and right audio and your VGA, and then you have to wire up a JAMMA harness as well. But as I said, if you're like me and you're taking the power from the AC adapter, no need for the how do you say it, the JAMMA harness actually have a power source, because as I said, as you can see, it's not plugged in. And then up on our screen here, let me zoom in here really quick. I just want to show you a couple things. Nothing too crazy here. If we see game settings, and just to show you really quick here, up, down, left, right. And I have this wired exactly as ABCD on the Neo Geo pad. So A, B, C, D. And then E is the select button, because that's the only button I could map it to. Google was being all critical on me about mapping an action button to the select button, but it's kind of one of those, that's all I could really do. So I figured it would work. But game records, of course, just shows us everyone's points, and I believe they're all default because, as I had said, the settings had reset on this board because of the dead battery. But if you want to see really quick what's going on here on this hardware as the last part of this repair video, as I said, I'm tapping 5 volts from that connector, which is actually an output. I don't know if I'd mentioned it properly earlier in the video, but you'll see the cartridges on the end there. Basically what happens is the main board has an IDE connection that gets bridged to this one, and then all the pins just go directly into here, and that lets it access the cartridge. And unlike what I thought before, the cartridges actually are not encrypted, but the BIOS is needed for the system to know that yeah, this is actually a game system that's running the everything, and it's not like somebody just plugged it into a computer and trying to boot Windows, because it's using Windows XP embedded, I want to say. And on the back here, one of these is a pass-through for video, one of them is a pass-through for input because it uses the serial port. This uses, I believe, a USB header, so that's probably doing something else with controls or input. I'm not sure what this little guy's powering. It could just be for the light or something else, but yeah, basically just this board that you see here sits on top of that computer motherboard you saw in the videos, and that's basically where all the magic happens. And the good part is now, since I have that all set up, I can just leave this on and run it like that, and I don't have to worry about everything having a problem. I think one of these two jumpers over here gets us in VGA mode, if you will, 480p, and then one of them does something else. I forget if it's free play or if that's done in the configuration. We'll go a little bit more over this in the actual arcade video, but for now, as you can see, our ExAmu Exboard, which you can see here, is fully functional, and it turns out after so many years, I may have thrown a thing in the beginning there, I'm not sure if I did it or not, but the board was purchased back in December of 2022. It sat on the shelf for a while, and I eventually got that replacement motherboard in 2024, which is when that footage was recorded. And then, all this progress you see now didn't happen until early to mid-August of 2026. So this is like almost 4 years in the making, but hey, at least now we can play Arcana Heart 3 and possibly any other EXboard games. But apparently I'd asked Google and it's supposed to just display a blue screen like that. But yeah, everything now functions fine. And from what I understand, the reason why you don't see a splash screen, it's supposed to be a Yuki splash screen, is because it's displayed in 15 kilohertz, which of course my computer monitor cannot display. And just like any of the PC-based systems, they take a little while to actually load all their memory and like boot into Windows and then execute the program. But you should see in just a minute here kind of proof in the pudding that this whole thing actually does work, and there's legitimately no problem on my little Dell monitor here. Yeah, there it is. Warning, this game is only for Japan. And that's the only other drawback. You can't put this in English, but it's one consolation. And I don't know if I had made mention, but I only spent about $60 shipped for this whole thing, so I never felt too bad about that. Well, this has been another Game Nexus arcade repair video, and I shall see you later. Bye.